All right, this is going to be a full Apollo.io tutorial. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Apollo.io to build lead lists. I'm going to run you through all the different features that the platform offers. And then I'm also going to show you all the different filters that it offers when you're building a lead list. And I'm going to build a lead list from scratch so you can see my exact process for building lead lists. And then finally, I'm also going to show you how to export that lead list from the platform and then also verify it so it's ready to use for your cold email campaigns. Now, for some context, my name is Alex. I run a B2B cold email agency. I've sent over 5 million cold emails, booked over 1,000 sales calls, and generated 1.2 million in revenue for my clients using cold email. And the majority of our lead lists have been built in this platform. So we use Apollo pretty much on a daily basis to build our lead lists and to help us with our cold email targeting. The first thing that you need to do if you want to start using Apollo is you need to actually create an account. And in order to create an account, you just need to type in apollo.io into Google, and it's going to bring you to this website right here. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time scrolling through the website. You can always do that in your free time if you want to see all the different features, but I'm just going to show you how to create an account and how you can get started. Now, there's also a bunch of resources here. So if you actually want to go through these, there's an academy, other books and guides and templates, and you can always do that in your free time. And if you're just getting started and you have no experience, then that might even actually help you. Just so that you have more knowledge when it comes to the platform. All right, so once you click on pricing, it's going to land on this page right here where you can see all the different packages that Apollo offers. And then here you can also see all the different features by solution. So if you're interested in outbound, you can see that in the free package, this is what you can do in terms of outbound. This is what you can do in terms of outbound. This is what you can do in terms of outbound. And the list goes on. If you want to do inbound and you're interested in inbound, then you can also see all the different features that each package offers for inbound. And then the same goes for data enrichment, and the same goes for deal execution. Okay, but what we're interested in is outbound. So what we care about is primarily the features that come with the outbound. You can either go for an annual billing or a monthly billing. If you're just getting started, you don't know how consistently you're going to be using the platform, don't commit to a 12-month contract. I would recommend going with the monthly billing. But if you know that you're going to be using Apollo for the next 12 months, there's no reason why you shouldn't go for the annual billing and actually save 20%. But for now, I would recommend going with the monthly billing. Now, there's 4 different packages. The main thing that we use Apollo for, and truthfully, the only thing that we use Apollo for, is to build lead lists. So the only thing that we care about within Apollo is actually how we can build a lead list. And whatever package allows us to build a lead list and whatever package gives us access to all the filters in order for us to build a lead list, that's good enough. Now, the good thing with Apollo is that it also gives you a free plan. Now, as you can see, it's very limited in terms of the credits that you can actually export. However, you do have access to the platform for free, and you can actually play around with all the filters for free. The only difference between the free package and the basic package in terms of building lead lists is that you're not going to have access to all the filters. And I'm going to show you once we go into Apollo which filters you're not going to have access to on the free plan. But if you're just getting started out, you're not sure if you're going to be using Apollo, just go for the free plan. It's going to allow you to explore through the platform and just basically check it out for free. But I would recommend going for the basic plan. Now, it's very important to mention that because the main use case for us is going to be building lead lists, what we also care about is how many leads we can export from the platform. However, we use a separate tool to actually scrape Apollo and to export the leads from the database. We don't actually export using these credits right here. So we don't actually care if this says 2,500 credits, 3,000 credits, 5,000 credits, because I'm going to show you a different way to scrape the database. So what I mean is that we're actually going to build the lead list in Apollo. Then we're going to take that URL of the lead list, we're going to copy it, we're going to paste it into a different scraping tool, and that's going to allow you to get those Apollo leads for basically dirt cheap, for 1/10 of the cost of actually getting it directly through Apollo. So don't pay too much attention to how many credits you can actually export directly through Apollo, because I'm going to show you how to do that separately. And I would just recommend going for the basic package if you want to have full access to all the filters within the platform. And then obviously the good thing is that you can also do a 14-day trial. So just do a 14-day trial. It's going to be free. And then if you want to downgrade to the free package after those 14 days, you can do that. If you want to continue using the basic package, then obviously you can just continue, and it's going to be $59 a month. But you don't need to go for the professional or the organization unless there's actually a real need for you to do that, and you can go through all the different features. But for 99% of people, the basic package in combination with another scraping tool that can allow you to get the credits for much cheaper is going to get the job done. So let's go into Apollo. I'm going to show you what the database looks like. So this is the home page. This is the dashboard. This is the first thing you're going to see when you log into Apollo. And this is where you can actually build a lead list. Before we start building a lead list, before I start running you through all these different filters right here, I'm going to show you the different features that Apollo offers. So essentially, these are the different features. You can prospect and enrich, you can engage, you can track your deals. There's tools and automations, inbound, and managing records. Now, truthfully, we don't use any of these functions here besides prospect and enrich. We don't use Apollo to engage because we use another tool called Smart Lead to launch our cold email campaigns. If you want to know how to use Smart Lead, if you want to know how to launch cold email campaigns using Smart Lead, I have a separate video talking about that in my channel, so you can go and watch that. So I wouldn't recommend engaging through Apollo. We don't track any of our metrics, win deals, meetings, conversions in Apollo either. We have a separate tool for that as well. Tools and automations, once again, we don't do that directly through Apollo. We use separate tools for all our automations and basically to track all our analytics, and we don't use it for inbound either. So we don't use Apollo for basically anything besides prospect and enrich. So that's what I'm going to focus on in this video. Now there's two views here. You can view it from a people level, so how many people you have, and you can also view it from a company level if you want to see how many companies you have. Now I'm going to go for the people level because we want to export the contacts. We care about how many contacts we have when we're building a lead list. So we, 99% of the time, we always prospect and we build lead lists through the people search as opposed to the company search. But if you want to know how many companies you have in your market, then the filters are pretty much exactly the same, and you can view it through the company search rather than the people search. But for now, I'm going to stick to the people search. So if this is the first time you're actually viewing the Apollo dashboard, then these filters might look a bit confusing if you haven't seen these before, but I'm going to run you through them in order of how we actually build the lead list. So I'm going to show you how we build a lead list. I'm just going to run you through the ones that we use the most as well. So the ones that we use are the email status, the job titles. We use the companies. So if you want to actually import some companies or list of companies that you want to include or exclude, you can do that as well. Or if you want to actually find prospects that are a part of a certain domain, then you can just import that domain here. We use that sometimes as well. The company lookalike is not extremely accurate, so we don't actually use this search. But if you want to find lookalike companies of a certain company, then you can use that. Then we always use the location as well, employees, industry, and keywords. We also use that. And then we don't really use anything from here. So we don't use the market segments, AI filters, buying intent. We only use the technology search. Now, the revenue filter is not extremely accurate. The best proxy for revenue is just using headcount. The headcount is going to be far more accurate because it's publicly available information. Apollo gets the information through LinkedIn, and it's publicly available information how many employees a company has, and you can see that through LinkedIn. Whereas revenue is not going to be entirely accurate, so we try to avoid it. And I wouldn't recommend using revenue. And I wouldn't recommend using any of these either. We don't use any of these filters. Now, I mentioned previously that I was going to show you the difference between the free plan and the basic plan. So if you're on the free plan, then you're not going to have access to the technology filter. The technology filter is quite useful. So for example, if you're building a lead list of ecom brands and you want to find brands that are on Shopify, then it's definitely going to help you if you can search through technology, because now you know that all of these companies right here and all of these prospects are actually using Shopify. So I wouldn't recommend being on the free plan if you want to use the technology filter. Okay, that's the main limitation in my opinion. So let's actually build a lead list. I'm going to show you the order that we use these filters. So the first thing you always want to do is you want to go through the email status and you want to check verified, unverified, and user managed. You don't want to check update required or unavailable. So the reason why we're also going to tick on verified and user managed as opposed to having only the verified ones is because what we want in Apollo is we want all the prospects that have an available email address, regardless of whether it's verified or not verified. And the reason for that is because we're then going to use a separate tool called Million Verifier to verify our contact details in real time. Because when Apollo says that an email address is verified, it's not actually verified in real time, and it's not going to be entirely accurate. So what we want here is a list of all the prospects that have an available email address. So whether it's unverified, user managed, or verified, we want that here. And then we're going to export the lead list, and then we're going to verify it. What we don't want is, for example, a prospect that doesn't have an email address, and that's why we don't tick the last two here. So make sure that if you're building a lead list as you're watching this video, always tick verified, unverified, and user managed, because we're going to verify it later on. The next thing we want to do when you're building a lead list, you always want to think about it on two levels. We have the company level and then we have the people level. So exactly who these companies are. So what companies do we want to be reaching out to? And then what people within those companies are going to be relevant decision makers for the kind of service or product that we are selling. So I always like to build my lead list by firstly searching for the companies that I want. So I set all my filters when it comes to who these companies are, where these companies are located, how big the companies are. And then once I have my companies, I then go up here to the job titles and I actually select the job titles that I want within those companies. Okay, you can do this however you want. Just always keep in mind that you need to set the people filters and the company filters. So the first thing that I always do is I always go down to the industry. Okay, so what industry are we actually reaching out to? So Apollo has a bunch of different industries. It's not just these 10, 15 industries that are here. If you actually type in, for example, the letter A, you'll see that there's going to be more industries. Or then if you type in the letter B, you'll see there's going to be different industries. So there's dozens of industries in the Apollo database, and you just need to experiment depending on the kind of lead list that you want to build. But just for this video and this tutorial, I'm going to build a lead list of ecom brands. So a brand obviously is going to be in the retail industry. So we want to type in retail. And then to make it a bit more specific, I'm also going to do apparel and fashion. So I want to build a lead list of apparel and fashion brands. Now, if you want to build a lead list of other brands, still retail, but other retail brands, and obviously there's consumer goods, sporting goods, luxury goods and jewelry. You could even type in food and beverage and you'll get food and beverage brands. Now, the problem here is that we might also get manufacturers under apparel and fashion. We might get distributors, we might get suppliers, we might get the technology that is used for the retail industry. So we need to use keywords now to filter the search, because retail and apparel and fashion are pretty broad terms and we might get lots of different industries. So for example, we have Walmart here, and Walmart is obviously not a retail apparel and fashion brand that we want to be reaching out to. So what we're going to do, we're going to come into keywords. Keywords, you have to think about it as the kind of words that they would have on their website. Okay. Now, if I add the keyword, for example, add to cart, the problem with this keyword is that it's too broad. So any kind of brand could have the keyword add to cart. So you need to find keywords that are specific to the kind of brands that you want to be reaching out to. It needs to be keywords that are only going to be used and that are only going to be on the website of the companies that you're actually targeting. Okay, so just make sure that a very common mistake here is to use a keyword that your ideal clients have on their website. But then there's also other companies that also have that keyword on their website. So then it's just going to make your entire lead list to be much less accurate, and you're going to have lots of errors in your lead list. And then you're going to launch cold email campaigns. You're going to be wondering why no one's responding. And it's because you think that you only have apparel and fashion brands, but because you added a keyword that is also used by food and beverage brands, by cosmetics brands, you now all of a sudden don't have the lead list that you think you have. So what we can do, what I like to do for the apparel and fashion industry, and generally speaking for retail brands, I like to start naming the different products that they might have on their website. So for example, we could do t-shirts, we could do shorts, we could type in dresses, we could even do shoes, we could do suits, we could also do hats and also caps, we could do scarves as well. It really depends, like the list goes on. The easiest way to do this is just to go into ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT that you want to target the retail industry and specifically you want to find apparel and fashion brands. Give me 20 keywords that would be exclusive to apparel and fashion brands. So keywords that no other company, no other retail brand could actually have on their website. All right, so we have t-shirts, short dresses, shoes, suits, hats, caps, and scarves. We can also do trousers. We could do jeans. We could also do leggings, and we'll just keep it there. We could also do sweaters as well. Okay, so now every single company that is going to be in this list has these kind of words on their website. Now, the problem, once again, is that we could get manufacturers, we could get suppliers of t-shirts, and we also don't want those companies either. So now we can also exclude keywords. So I'm going to exclude, first of all, B2B. We don't want any B2B companies. So we need to make sure that these companies are only direct to consumer. We're only looking for brands. We want to exclude supplier. We want to exclude manufacturer. We want to exclude distributor. We also want to exclude white label solutions as well. So we can do white label. We also want to exclude drop shipping. And then you could even start naming the different industries that you want to exclude. So we could exclude food, we could exclude beverage, we could exclude cosmetics. Then you can actually start naming all the different retail brands and industries that you want to start excluding. Now, one thing that's really going to help your search when you're actually building a lead list of retail brands is going down to the technology section, and you can actually type in Shopify. So if you want to build a list of ecom brands, most of them are on Shopify. And you could also use WooCommerce. That's also a good platform. You could also use Klaviyo as well for email marketing. So these are the three main ones that you can use when you're building a list of retail brands. So if we do that, now we know that every single brand here is using Shopify, they're using WooCommerce, and they're also using Klaviyo. then we also have our keywords here that we want to include. We also have our keywords that we want to exclude. So now that we've done that, the next thing we want to do is we want to go for employees. It's very important here. Like if you're selling something that is high ticket, if you're selling something that's a couple grand a month, you don't want to reach out to a brand that has 1 employee or 2 employees. You want to reach out to a brand that actually has a real business with lots of employees as well, because it means that they might also have the budget and they'll also be able to afford your services. So employees and headcount is a good proxy for revenue. Now you can either use the predefined range or you could go down into the custom range and you could actually choose how many employees you want. So I'm just going to say 8 employees to 100. That's what we're looking for. And as you can see now, using all these filters, we have 35,000 contacts. The next thing we can do is we can go to the location. So you could filter for location on 2 levels. You could either go for the contacts locations where the actual prospect is located, or you could go for the account headquarters. So I'm going to go to the account headquarters. I'm going to do the United States. I'm going to do the United Kingdom. I'm also going to do Canada. And then we can also do the European Union. Okay, so these are typically English-speaking countries. And as you can see now, we have 26,000 prospects. So the more filters we add, the smaller the lead list is going to be. And a good rule of thumb is you definitely want maybe less than 5 to 10,000 prospects when you're going to build your lead list. If you have 26,000 prospects, it means that it's probably not specific enough. It means you probably haven't added enough filters, and it's probably going to have a lot of variation within the lead list. What we want to do now that we have our industries, we also have our employees, we also have our location, is we want to go up to the job titles. Now for job titles, you can do this in 2 different ways. You can either go to the management level and you could choose owner, founder, C-suite, partner, VP, head, and director. You could actually choose the management level, and you could also choose the department. So if you choose a management level of VP, director, and manager, you could then go into the departments and choose the director of finance, the director of marketing. But I don't like to do that. I like to actually add my job titles individually. So I'm going to go into the include, and I'm going to start typing in all the job titles that I want. So I want to go after the founder. I want to go after the president. And if you put these 2 speech marks, it means that it's only going to be the exact word president. Whereas if you don't put those 2 little speech marks and you just write the word founder, you can see here it's going to be any job title that has the word founder in it. So we have co-founder, that's going to be have CEO and founder, whereas president just means it has to be president. So we don't want president of something else. We just want the president. And the next thing you can do now, depending on what kind of service or product you're selling, the best way you can think about the job titles that you should add is if you're selling marketing services to e-com brands, you want to go after the marketing department within those companies. And you always want to go after the VP of the department, the head of the department, and the director of the department. And then you also want to find the C-level executive of that department. So if you're selling marketing services, you want to go after the CMO, the VP of marketing, the director of marketing, and the head of marketing. If you're selling accounting services or a service that is related to the finances of those companies, you could go after the CFO, the VP of finance, the head of finance, director of finance. But just for this example, just for this tutorial, let's imagine that we're selling marketing services to these e-com brands. We could go after the CMO. We could go after the VP of marketing. We could do the director of marketing, and then we could also do the head of marketing. And then, of course, you could also do, for example, the managing director. There's a couple of other job titles you could use as well. So I like to put the word growth. So if you're selling any services that have to do with growth, then if you can find someone that has the word growth in their job title, that always helps. Now, if you're selling marketing services, you could also go after the creative departments. You could go after the VP of creatives. If you're helping them with their creatives, you could go after the creative director. And then you could also go after the head of creatives. And then you could even go after the sales department, for example. You could go after the head of sales, and then you could also go after the director of sales. Finally, also the VP of sales. And now you can see we have 2,500 prospects that we can actually contact. This is going to be a pretty accurate lead list. So if we actually run through all the different filters that we've used now, we have the email status that is verified, unverified, and user managed, which means that all of these prospects here actually have an email address that we can contact. We then have the industry here that is basically going to be retail and apparel and fashion. Within retail and apparel and fashion, we have t-shirts, shorts, dresses, and a couple of other keywords that they may have on their website. And then we also excluded keywords that would give us B2B companies, a supplier, manufacturer, a distributor, a white label company, drop shipping, or any other industries. So like food, beverage, cosmetics. And there's even more keywords that you could exclude. There might sort of be some sort of a technology that is used for retail brands. You could even remove the word tech. You could remove the word software. You could remove the word solutions. You could even remove the word marketing, because there might be a marketing firm that is also doing their marketing for an ecom brand, and for some reason they might fall under retail or apparel and fashion. So you want to remove marketing. You also want to remove advertising as well. All right, so now we've also excluded more keywords. We excluded software, solutions, marketing, advertising, and tech. And now you can see that we have 2,000 in total. Okay, we have 2,000 prospects in total. We also set the head count to be 8 to 100. You can also reduce this to 5, for example. The bigger the range, the more prospects you're going to have. So now if I set this to 5 to 100, you can see we have 2.6K prospects. Now we also got an extra couple hundred prospects. And then we also have the technology filter at the bottom that is Shopify, WooCommerce, and Klaviyo. So this is also pretty useful, because any kind of company that is selling some sort of service as a service-based company is probably not going to be using Shopify. So now we have 2.6K companies. You don't really need to use any of the other filters here. This is going to be a pretty accurate lead list. As you can see here, there's a sample of your lead list. These are all probably going to be clothing brands. We can just open a couple. So if we take Rocco Clothing, we go to the company website, you can see here, this is a retail, apparel and fashion clothing brand, as we expected. If we close that, we can also open another one. We can go into the Because of Alice website. I have no idea what these companies are. I'm just choosing them at random. Once again, retail, apparel and fashion. We'll just open one more just so that you can see that it is quite accurate. We can do Flyhawk here. So if we open that up, you can see flyhawk.com. This is also retail, apparel, and fashion. Okay, this is a sports brand though. So if you also wanted to filter it down so you're not getting any sports brands, and once again, you can just play around with the keywords, and using the keywords, you can actually choose what kind of apparel and fashion brands you want. But as you can see, this is a pretty accurate lead list, and we have 2.6K companies. Okay, so now depending on who you want to reach out to, okay, depending on the companies that you want to reach out to, always just use the filters that I showed you here. Okay, always just set the location, the employees that you want, the industry that you want, and never rely on the industry filter. You always want to include your keywords. Okay, so just make sure that you're not adding any keywords that any company could have, and then also exclude any keywords that would also make your list to be less accurate. So just try and think about all the keywords that could fall under the industry that you selected. The best way to do this is just go into ChatGPT, tell ChatGPT exactly what you want to do, and you can tell it to give you a couple of keywords to include, and then also a couple of keywords to also exclude. I always like to be on the safe side of things. So I might just type in the word accounting in the exclude, because I want to make sure that there's 100% not going to be an accounting firm in my lead list. Or I might also type in, for example, financial services, where like, even though I know I'm 99% sure there's not going to be a company that offers financial services, I always like to just exclude as many keywords as I can to make sure that there's not going to be errors in my lead list. Okay, so that's how you build a lead list in Apollo. And then once you choose the filters that you want for the companies and you're going to start selecting the job titles, always think now about the service that you offer. Okay, so when you think about the companies that you want to target, think about who they are. And then if you're thinking about the job titles that you want to target, think about what you offer. That's the best way to think about the decision makers that you want to target. If your services are related to marketing, go after the marketing department. If your services are related to finances, go after the finance department. If it's related to sales, the sales department. And always target them in different management levels. So go after a C-level executive, the VP of a department, the director of the department, the head of the department. And usually the larger the company, the further down the hierarchy you need to go in order to find the decision maker. So if you're going after a company that has 10 employees, it's more likely that the founder is making all the decisions. Whereas if you go after a company that has 100 employees, you need to target the VP of the department, the manager of the department, the director of the department, because the founder is probably not involved with what the company is doing for marketing or to generate new business, or even with the finances of the company. You need to go after the head of that department. So just bear that in mind when you're selecting your job titles. And now the next thing you want to do after you build your lead list is you need to export it. So to export your lead list, what you need to do is you need to select this little box here. And the automatic selection is going to be 25 rows. And you don't want to select only 25 because we have 2,500 prospects. So you want to click on this arrow that says more options, and you can select all. Okay. If you select custom, you can actually choose how many people per company you want to be reaching out to. If you want to reach out to all the people within the company, then just go to select all. and now you've selected all your 2,500 people. Okay, so what you can do now, you can email them, you can add them to a sequence, you can add them to a list, you can do a lot of things with this list. Okay, you can also save the search up here if you want to save it, and then you can actually have it for future reference. You can do that as well. But if you want to export it, you just click on export here. And now, once again, you can do all these different things. You can add it to your list, you can add it to a sequence. But what we want to do is we want to export it. You can also get their mobile numbers. So if you want to get the mobile numbers of these people and you want to call them as well, you can just add that as well. It's going to cost you 8 credits though for every phone number, as opposed to 1 credit like an email address. But if you want to export it through Apollo, all you need to do is click on export all emails. Don't export only the verified ones, because as I said, we're going to use a different tool to verify the emails, but you want to export all emails. And then once you do that, you're going to click on save. Once you click on save, the list is going to be exported. I'm not going to export this lead list right here, and I don't want you to export the lead list this way either. Okay, I'm going to show you a different way to export the lead list so that you don't use up all your Apollo credits. And I'm going to show you the exact way to get the list of these 2,500 contacts for 1/10 of the price. Okay, so what you want to do is you basically want to take this URL right here. This is going to be the URL of the lead list that we created. You're going to copy the URL and you're going to go into this tool that is called Ample Leads. Here's an Apollo scraper. A scraper is basically a company, it's a tool that can go into Apollo and it can actually extract all the data. It can extract all those contact details, but it's going to do it for much, much cheaper. So if I go into buy credits, you'll see here that you can do 11,500 credits for $29 a month. Whereas Apollo is going to cost you $50 a month and it's going to give you 1/5 of the credits. Okay. Now you can also do the growth package. So you can do 24,000 credits for $59. So you're basically paying $2.50 for every 1,000 leads that you export, which is dirt cheap. So what you need to do is you just need to subscribe. As I said, this is called app.ampleleads.io. And this is going to basically bring you to this page right here. You just need to basically create an account and just subscribe to any one of these, depending on how many credits you need to export. So if you remember the lead list that we built in Apollo, we only have 2,500 contacts. So we can actually get the starter package, which is going to be 11,500 credits, and it's going to cost us $29, and we're still going to have 9,000 available credits for other lead lists. All right, so once you buy your credits, you want to come into this section that says Apollo Scraper, where you can see that you can extract high quality leads from Apollo. Now, what you want to do is you want to go back to Apollo, you want to take your URL, and you want to export that URL, and you want to basically copy paste it into this search bar right here. So here you can choose the number of leads that you want to export. We had 2,500 leads, so I'm going to do 2,500 here. And then you also need to choose the file name. So you can just call it, for example, Ecom brands, 8+ employees, and we could even call it Shopify if you use some sort of a technology. Just use a naming convention that's going to help you understand what this lead list actually is. Now, I can't actually start scraping because I have insufficient credits. I've used up all my credits, and we actually use a different account to actually scrape our Apollo leads. So I don't actually have any credits in this account, but all you need to do now is just click on Start Scraping. When you click on Start Scraping, if you go down to your recent requests, you can see I don't have any requests here because I just typed in AA here because we have some client requests here and we just don't want to disclose that. But all your requests are basically going to be here. And once the scraper finishes running, you can just export your CSV file from here. There's going to be an export button, and you're basically going to be able to export those 2,500 leads through Ample Leads. And you can see this is much cheaper than doing it directly through Apollo. Okay, so that's how I want you to export your Apollo lead list. Now, once you finish scraping your leads in Ample Leads, the next thing you need to do is you need to verify the lead list, because now the lead list is not verified. You've exported it from Apollo and you've done that using the scraping tool and you got it for a lot cheaper, but there's still a possibility that those contact details are not verified and they're not up to date. Okay, we've done whatever we can using the filters to make sure that those contacts and the companies are precise. So we've done everything we can to make sure that these are the actual companies and people you want to reach out to, but it still doesn't mean that the contact details of those people are verified. So after you finish scraping your lead list through Ample Leads, the next thing you need to do is you need to come into this tool right here called Million Verifier, which, as you can see here, is a verification service. So it's very cheap to verify your email addresses. If you go into Start Email Verification, or if I just scroll down, you can see the actual pricing here. So you can see here that the email verification prices, the cheapest one is going to be $39, and it's going to be for 10,000 verification credits. Okay, so the cheapest thing you can do is just get 10,000 verification credits, which is absolutely fine because it's not going to renew automatically on a monthly basis. You can just renew it every time you run out of credits. So I would just recommend starting off with 10,000 verification credits. Just click on Buy Now. And then what you want to do is you want to create an account. You want to log into your account. I'm going to show you how to actually verify the lead list. So once you log into your account, this is what you're going to see. This is the home page, the dashboard of Million Verifier. You can also buy new credits through the actual dashboard. And you can see here I have 13,000 credits. All you need to do is you need to click on select file, and you need to just choose the CSV file that you have. Okay, and once you choose that CSV file, it's going to automatically start verifying it. Now, after it verifies, this is what you're going to see. So these are going to be the results. You can see here, this is the name of my CSV file. This is how many leads I have. And then you can see here that 75% of the leads were good, 19% are risky, and 7% are actually bad. So bad means invalid and disposable. Risky means that they're catch-all or unknown. And then the good ones means that they're actually good, and you can actually reach out to those prospects safely. It means that the emails are actually valid and it's safe to send emails to them. So once you verify your lead list, what you want to do is you only want to export the good ones. I can make a separate video showing you how to actually validate the risky emails, but if you want to stay on the safe side of things and you don't want to have any issues with deliverability and with your inbox and domain reputation, make sure that you just don't email the risky ones, at least for the time being. Always prioritize reaching out to the good emails. And as you can see here, I have 1,700 contacts that are good. And then there's also 500 contacts and 150 contacts that I'm not going to reach out to, even though I exported those from Apollo, but you can see that not all of them were actually verified. Okay, but now I know that it's verified in real time, and I can actually reach out to them safely and not worry about my deliverability. All right, so that's it for this video. You now know how to use Apollo.io to build lead lists. You know all the different features and filters within Apollo. You also know how to export your lead list directly from Apollo, but also how to export it using an Apollo scraper like Ample Leads, which is going to allow you to scrape tens of thousands of leads for much, much cheaper, for 1/10 of the price. And then once you also export that lead list from Apollo, whether it's directly or using Ample Leads, you then want to import it into Million Verifier. You also know how to verify your lead list, and you only want to export the good emails through Million Verifier. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions regarding this entire process or for any of the tools that I've mentioned, Apollo, Ample Leads, or Million Verifier, just leave your questions in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.